Welcome back to MDL Crochet's tips, tricks, and item makes. This week's tip is perfect edges. How to keep the edges perfect, how to keep everything lined up. And we actually go through it. So join me as I show you how to keep your edges perfect. So let's get to it. So I get asked a lot of how do I keep my tension? How do I make clean edges? And how do I know where to insert my hook on the last stitch? And how do I close off a project? Well, I'm going to show you that. So we're going to go ahead and make a chain of 10. Just a simple chain. Don't make it too tight, don't make it too loose, just your normal tension. It's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And with Tunisian, we don't work in the front unless the pattern maker specifies or the stitch specifies. So the loop, the chain that your loop is coming out of does not count, because that counts as that. Go down one, flip over, and you're going to see all these series of bumps in the back. Well, that's what we're going to work in. We're going to work in those back bumps. So go ahead and pull up your loops. And remember to keep your tension pretty decent, like you normally would. Because loose tension makes for sloppy projects. So does splitting the yarn. So just keep working down until you get all your loops up on your hook. And then we'll start the return pass and I'll show you how to handle that. Okay, so we're pulling up our last loop, right? And it's yarn over, chain 1, and then you're going to yarn over and pull through 2 all the way down to the end. And when you start getting about 4 to 5 stitches from being done with the end, just make sure your tension is still good, because that helps clean up this side. We're going to do a few more rows, and then we're going to start with how to keep the perfect tension on the return side beginning. And we can start that now. So for this side, what you're going to do is you just completed a row, which you just closed off. So if you take your needle with all the loops on it, just row down to the one you just pulled all those loops from, fold your work, and you're going to end up right where you need to go. So pull up a loop, yarn over, chain 1, yarn over, pull through 2. And you're going to pull through 2 all the way down to the end. And remember, when you're getting close to the end, keep your tension nice. And then before you get going on the next row, keep your tension the same as you have been. Make sure it's still gauged right. And you can see at the bottom of how working it on the bottom keeps a really nice edge when we go through the bumps. So what you're going to do is keep it nice and taut and pull up your loops again. And we're at the end again. So again, take your working needle with all the loops on it, and just roll it down to the row you just completed. Fold over, because this is where you're trying to go. Where you're trying to go is in between this bar and in front of that bar and behind these 2 chevrons. So when you fold your work, as you can see, it goes right where it needs to go. It may be a little snug, it may not be. And especially if you're splitting the yarn, it'll be pretty snug. And then you can see when you pull it up, you can see the bar, the back bar, even better, because that's what you're trying to split. Now you have a loop up, so you yarn over and pull through one. You're chaining one, yarn over and pull through two. We'll do this method one more time. Remember, towards the end, make sure that tension is good, make sure everything is good so that all these lines, your sides are just nice and smooth and everything is nice and clean. So go ahead and pull up your loops again. And these methods work for every stitch, keeping it nice and clean. Of course, you don't want loose tension because then you have loose work. All right, so we're here again. Take your needle that has all your loops, roll it down, and you can see the bar already. We need to go right through here, but we got to capture it through both of those V's right there. So just roll down, roll your work, fold over, and you're through it. Yarn over, pull up a loop, and there you are. So the next, and then you're going to chain one and then pull through two. So the next method to be able to find that spot, I'm not too big of a fan of, simply because you have to stop what you're doing. Remember, keep it nice and tensioned. I don't want to say tight, but nice and tensioned. Keep your tension up. But the next method, I'm just not a fan of, simply because you have to stop what you're doing. I don't like to stop unless I'm getting up to go eat or whatever. This requires you to stop what you're doing as soon as you pull up your loop. So let's go ahead and pull up our loop. We're there. So the next method, you're using a stitch marker. Now the stitch marker, and this is how you do it. You just feed it above like this, and then you're going to angle it, and you're going to go right in front of that. You only want the front loop, and then you can lock it into place. Because when you're getting ready here in just a second to make sure my tension's good, chain one, yarn over, and pull through two. Because now it separates where you need to go. But it requires you to stop. And if you're in a project that is forever big, or something you're in a rush, it messes with your groove. It really does. And we'll do this method a few more times so you can see how it's done. Okay, you can see it's right there. So you know where you have to go. Let's open it up a little bit so you can see better. And then just poke through, follow the stitch marker. You can go ahead and pull the stitch marker out. Yarn over. Or you could have left it. You could leave it and then pull it out now. So you want the opening to be up, because you want your yarn to go just like this. You want it to go up, and then you're going to get that front loop. And then yarn over, chain one, yarn over, pull through two. And then yarn over. Oh, we got a split there. Yarn over, pull through two. And just keep pulling through 2, yarning over and pulling through 2. And making sure you're keeping your tension nice, because you're keeping those edges. These edges are very nice and clean. That's what you want. Yes, majority of Tunisian does curl. If you're working it in acrylic, you can steam block it. If you're working it in animal fibers or plant fibers, you can wet block it. Acrylic does best with steam. Animal and plant fibers work best being wet blocked. Okay, so we're going to get to the end and we're going to do this method, leaving the needle leaving the stitch marker in instead of pulling it out. So let's just follow the path where the stitch marker's at. Then you pull up a loop, and now you just move it, go in front of your yarn, just go right like this, and then take that front loop and then tighten it up a little bit, and then chain 1 and then pull through 2, because what you just did is you locked it into place where you need to go. That tells you, oh, that's where I need to put my needle on to close off this row. But we're going to do this row one more time, and then I'm going to show you the next method to keeping your projects nice and clean and the edges beautiful. So remember to keep this side nice and tensioned. Go ahead and pull up your loops, and then go right through that one more time. And there you are. Then what you pull out, take it and just slide it right through like this. Take it and go through that front loop and just let it dangle. If you have ones with long necks, you can just let it dangle. But if you have these where they're smaller, you may want to clip them into place. Chain 1, yarn over and pull through 2. Getting asked, how do I close off a project, right? There isn't any one set answer, except for that all involves a slip stitch. You, in my honest opinion, should do the slip stitch in this stitch. However, there are some stitches you cannot do the slip stitch. What I mean by the stitch is like, okay, if we're doing the knit stitch, you would do an actual knit stitch, and then you would slip it off. You could do it with the full stitch. You could do that exact same thing. You just pull up the actual stitch and then do the slip stitch. There are some stitches you cannot do that with. The alpine stitch, the star stitch, the Saloniki. You can do that in the Saloniki. There's just several stitches that you can't do it in. So with this being simple stitch, that would be easy to do it in. So you just pick up like you would normally for a simple stitch, and then you just pull through. Keeping only one loop on your hook is all what you want after every stitch pull up. You want that one loop. And the reason you want that one loop is because now you're closing the project off. Otherwise, the project is left with a bunch of holes in the top, which can get snagged on, which frankly, I think changes the look of the project and not in a good way. And that's just how you do a close off. Now I know this is a small swatch that we did all this on, but I wanted to show different methods that I use or that are out there to be used to keep nice clean edges, to keep your project nice and whatever design you're going for, to keep everything nice, clean, and pretty much have the perfect edges. Now on the end, you're going to do what you would normally do, just drop down, fold over, yarn over, pull up a loop, but before you go any further, slip it off. And then I like to be a little extra, and I like to add one more chain afterwards and pull through. Then you just got to weave in your ends, and your edges are nice and smooth, they're nice and straight, and they're nice and tight. Your tension matters big time. But that's how you would handle this. And that's how you would do perfect edges every time. And with that being said, folks, if you could give me a like and subscribe if you found these tutorials very helpful, it'd be greatly appreciated. And remember, keep stitching.